My guest today is Delegate Ben Cline, who is running for the 6th Congressional District seat as the Republican candidate. Thank you so much for being with me today, Delegate Cline.
Oh, glad to be here.
Perfect. Well, let's just get started. You once served as the Chief of Staff for Representative Goodlatte, whose seat you're running to replace. What did you learn from him as he served in the seat, and what do you plan to do differently if you were to win the election?
Great questions. Bob Goodlatte has been a champion for the Shenandoah Valley for 25 years, 26 actually. And so we're losing a giant in the House of Representatives as Judiciary Chairman and a former Agriculture Committee Chairman. Focus on agriculture is something that I'm going to hope to continue if elected, and also a focus on constituent service. Bob Goodlatte has a great record of, regardless of party, if you're a resident of the 6th District and you need help from the federal government, he is there. He's got 4 offices in the district that are whose purpose is to help people with problems with the federal government, whether it's getting your passport, issues with benefits, help with the VA hospitals, anything. That's something that I also want to continue, and so I hope to do that as well. As for differences, I think I have held town hall meetings every year, 4 across my small House district. Those are something I want to continue, so if elected, I'll be anxious to get started in and around the different parts of the 6th, having town hall meetings on a regular basis.
Perfect. Well, I of course have to ask you about the biggest news of the day. How do you feel about the confirmation vote on Judge Brett Kavanaugh? And if you were in the position, would you be voting yes on Judge Kavanaugh?
Well, it was riveting testimony yesterday. I did watch some of it, but and I don't envy the senators for having to make such a difficult decision. But that is a role and responsibility that is in the Senate's hands, not in the House's. So, as a part of their advise and consent role, I wouldn't want to impede on their functions. Just as in the House, I wouldn't want the Senate to interfere with the fact that, for example, the House starts all revenue bills. Wouldn't want the Senate to start a revenue bill because that would get in the way. So I'll let the senators make their choice, but it is a difficult decision. I do understand that.
But as a member of the GOP, do you have any preference for the way this nomination goes?
Well, I think it's a tough decision. I think that regardless of what party you're in, what position you're in, if you're a senator, that's a decision that the Senate's going to have to make.
Okay. Well, you recently rejected an additional debate at the Lexington Rockbridge Chamber of Commerce, and there has been some issues between you and your opponent, Jennifer Lewis, in setting up debates. So I'm not sure if you read, Professor Kevin Finch, who teaches at this university, wrote an op-ed about a nonpartisan debate commission for Virginia in the Roanoke Times. So would you support a nonpartisan Virginia debate commission for future election cycles?
Well, each election cycle is unique, and so I don't know how you would put together a debate commission or what the members, where they would come from. But I put forward 3 debates. I accepted 3 of the dozen or so invitations that we received. We can't do them all. We have a busy schedule of appearances and lots of door knocking, lots of campaign events. So I accepted 3 debates, and that was with the intent of having a debate in each part of the 6th District so that nobody had to travel more than an hour to reach one of the debate sites. The first one was at Spotswood in Rockingham County near Harrisonburg, because Front Royal, the northern part of the district, is a couple of hours from here, so we wanted one up in the north. And then I wanted one in Roanoke and one in Lynchburg. And so the Roanoke Chamber was the only offer that we got from Roanoke, so I accepted that one. And then the Lynchburg Chamber offered first to do something. We accepted that one as well, and that one's in about a month. So we've had the one in Rockingham, we've had the one in Roanoke. I thought my opponent had accepted the chamber invitation in Roanoke, later found out she decided not to participate. And that was unfortunate because the people of Roanoke, the largest metropolitan area in the entire 6th District, deserved to hear from the candidates about the issues. So regardless of who the sponsor was, I felt it was important to be there. Now, she's anxious to have more debates. I'm looking forward to the one in Lynchburg, but beyond those three, I don't see the opportunity to have another one given the schedules that we have at this point.
Okay, well, before we get into what you would possibly do if elected to the seat, if you were to not get elected to Congress, would you be interested in returning to the State House?
Well, I'm still a member of the State House up until Election Day in November, and even thereafter, I would have to make a decision about the House seat. But it's been the greatest honor for me to get to represent the residents of the 24th House District, the place I grew up here, right here in Lexington, running around the halls of W&L, where my father taught and my mother worked. So it's been a great honor to represent the views and concerns of those folks in Richmond, and I will continue to do it until the voters tell me I need to go somewhere, whether it's Washington or to stay in Richmond. I'm happy to serve.
So if you were to be elected to the 6th seat, as you know, there's a possibility you're going to be in the minority when you get to the House. How do you plan to work with the majority side on major legislation if Democrats take the House? For example, would you be open to new immigration reform ideas, path to citizenship for dreamers, single-payer health care, those sorts of issues?
Well, those are interesting issues. I have sought to work with across the aisle with Democrats in the State House on issues related to the district and concerns of district voters. So when it comes to government transparency, that's an issue I've worked across the aisle on. I'm on the Privacy Caucus, which has dealt with Fourth Amendment rights. I work across the aisle on those issues. Several higher ed issues. The 24th House District has 4 four-year colleges, which is more than any other State House district, and the 6th Congressional District has more colleges and universities than all the other 435 House districts but one up in Boston. So higher ed has been something I've been leading on in Richmond, working across the aisle, and that's something I'll continue to do. And then domestic violence is another issue. I'm a prosecutor, a former prosecutor of domestic violence cases for 10 years. And so that's very important to me. I've led on creating new penalties, felony penalties for strangulation cases. I serve on the board of Project Horizon here in Lexington. So that's a major issue for me that I'd want to continue to work on in Washington.
Perfect. So again, if you were to take the seat, how would you go about addressing the debt that's been incurred by the recently passed tax bill?
$21 trillion is the current debt level, and that is not just something that our children are going to have to deal with, but our children's children and the generations to follow. It is unsustainable. If we want our credit rating to look like Greece's, we can continue doing what we've done all along. But the spending has got to be brought under control. We are spending future generations into debt, and I plan to introduce the 4 words that haven't been heard up in Washington in a long time. We can't afford it. And those 4 words have been long forgotten, and I plan to remind the policymakers the effects of overspending and the need to reform a lot of the programs that may or may not be working, but at this point, just out of an abundance of concern over future spending, we need to reform them so that we can save more money.
Perfect. So along those lines, as you know, the tax bill was a Republican tax bill. So are there any other issues that you disagree with the official party position on that you would want to bring up in Congress?
Well, I don't hesitate to stand up when I disagree on a policy issue, whether it's for Democrats or Republicans. For a long time in Richmond, we didn't record votes in subcommittee. We just did voice votes for the most part. And so voters really couldn't tell where most of the most of our time was being spent in subcommittee working on bills. Voters couldn't tell how we were voting. So I actually stood up to my own leadership and made sure that this rules package that was passed at the beginning of the year included recorded votes in subcommittee for the first time. So I'll stand up to my leadership in the House if it's a Democrat leadership or if it's a Republican leadership, if the principle is important, something like transparency, that's a critical issue. So I'll stand up when needed for the people of the 6th District.
Are there any specific issues you can think of right now that you would want to address?
I am concerned about the direction we're on trade issues. The farmers of the 6th District are being caught in the trade negotiations that are going on right now. And it's, as you know, farming is such an important part of the economy here in the Shenandoah Valley that we really do need to examine closely what the current introduction of tariffs is going to get us in the end. If it's a means to an end of lowering tariffs across the board, which is what the administration says they want to do, I can support that, and I think the farmers will support that for a time. But if it's a long-term process where those tariffs are going to be in place and the farmers are going to be hurt for a long period of time, I think we need to reevaluate, because I'm a free trader and I'm not interested in long-term tariffs. All they do is raise the cost of goods for farmers and other manufacturers in the district.
So a little bit about campaigning as we lead up to this election. I wanted to ask you, why have you been one of the few Republicans willing to campaign alongside Senate candidate Corey Stewart in Virginia?
Well, I don't know the question, the way the question's been asked. I've participated in events like parades where Corey Stewart has participated, but I can't think of an event where we've been directly alongside each other.
Well, you've participated in events alongside him, something that other Republicans in the state have avoided doing. Is there a reason you think that you've been one of the ones willing to do so?
Well, Corey Stewart is the Republican nominee for the Senate, and I think that the Senate seat in Virginia needs to be represented by Republicans. Tim Kaine has not done a good job either as governor or as senator. He's forgotten about the people of the 6th District in particular, and we need a senator who's going to listen to the people of the 6th District and represent Virginia, not go up and try and be a vice presidential nominee or try and just use it as a stepping stone to a future office. So I think that we need a change in Washington, and I'm looking forward to working for that change.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have, but I really appreciate you joining me for this, Delegate Cline, and thank you so much again for coming this morning.
Thank you.